instruction, golf news, equipment, travel, interviews, course profiles, and more. Your weekly fix of all things golf is about to begin. It's the Flagstick Podcast with your hosts, Jeff Potter and Scott McLeod. I will welcome everybody to the Flagstick Podcast. I'm Jeff Potter. He's Scott McLeod. I am far from awake. He's awake, more awake than I am, I guess, today. Barely. The Flagstick Podcast this week is brought to you by Golf PEI. Golf Prince Edward is a premier Canadian golf destination boasting the most number of golf courses per capita in the country, with top-tier accommodations and exquisite culinary experiences and over 400 fairways closer than you can imagine. It is the easiest golf vacation you will ever book. So go ahead and book that vacation at golfpei.ca. I hope you're hooking up to us on social media, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. So we really encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like us and click the notification bell. Make sure that you never miss a single episode of this podcast or anything else that we put up there, which includes Flagstick Academy in winter, spring instruction, we'll call it. Presented by our good friends at shot at our good friends at Celtic Golf Center's facility in Kingston. So, yeah.
In a couple of weeks, Jeff.
It has been a couple of weeks. You notice no microphone in front of my face today.
Yeah, a little technical
glitch there. We're working with a backup plan. So, because we couldn't have you not be able to listen or watch this podcast this week. We couldn't go another week without us.
No, we'd be getting too many messages from people going, what's going on? Where's the podcast? So yeah, here we are, episode 117 already.
Powering through. Weather's turning a little bit finally.
Thankfully.
We're starting to see a little bit of melt, though it's a little cold today. But
it's supposed to be nice this weekend.
I hope so.
And we've got some golf courses actually opening in Ontario this weekend as of Friday for people, depending when you're listening to this, down in southwestern Ontario. Down in Dorchester, Pine Knot's opening, Tarandawa is opening. And then I got a couple of messages from some people today about some driving ranges that are getting closer to picking a date here in Eastern Ontario. So
we need it.
That means the openings calendar, which people have been clamoring to ask about, which is obviously very, very popular.
Yes.
We'll start getting that prepped. And, once we have some firm dates, we'll have that show up on the website.
There you go. See, spring is springing.
It is springing.
Spring has sprung or springing. This is going to be a dandy of a show, man. This is going to be a dandy of a show. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Okay, well,
it's all good.
Let's just say on this show, obviously, we're going to be talking about a little bit the Players' Championship. And we're going to share some of Scott's experience from last week when he played in a PGA Tour Pro-Am down in Puerto Rico. And then we're just going to chat about a bunch of stuff because I just feel like this is just a chatty show. Because it could be a gong show, but it's going to be a chatty show. So let's get to the front nine presented by Metcalf Golf Club. A natural setting, a pleasant challenge. Clearly, golf season isn't that far off. It's time to start thinking about the season ahead. Golf at Metcalf Golf Club is a perfect place to start. Become a member, get on a wait list. Join one of the leagues, get on a wait list. Participate in one of their many events or save money on golf with the very popular game passes. Visit metcalfgolf.com for all that great stuff. Okay.
And they were one of the attendees at the Ottawa-Gatineau Golf Expo.
They were.
And obviously had some popularity there with people looking at game passes and so forth.
Yeah, that's kind of their popular thing at the Golf Expo. And I mean, people go to the Golf Expo to observe, to learn, but to buy stuff and to save some money while doing it. So, well, let's start there with the Golf Expo a little bit and just kind of we didn't exhibit this year. We chose not to exhibit this year, just with all things and other things that were going on that weekend. We did attend. You helped Derek McDonald out on the seminar stage with one of his instruction seminar on Friday.
Yep.
and I popped in to the show for a couple hours on Friday just to chat with some people, see what was going on, get the lay of the land with the show, and so on. So what I've heard is that Saturday was a pretty busy day for the majority of the day. It was a little different. There were no equipment manufacturers on site, which there have been in the past. That with the driving range, they had the driving range set up in the past with all the equipment manufacturers, and people could try out the latest and greatest equipment. A little different this year, was more of a retail setting. I think there were 2 or 3 retailers there. Lots of great things to buy and save bucks on. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, maybe that's what the majority of people want, is not to go there to buy a $800 driver, but to go there to save a few bucks on some equipment, some clothing, a new golf bag, whatever the case may be.
I think there was a lot of, I know it was a little rough on Friday night because I drove home in a nice storm.
Oh, the weather was crappy.
Back to Kingston. The weather was not great. But I'd say overall, the biggest thing that I saw was just kind of, it was a get together. Kind of show. A lot of people sort of going, hey, golf season's coming. Golf associations were there for an example, and just kind of people coming out of the woodwork, especially with poorer weather in the last little while or whatever, and just sort of starting to get a feel maybe for it's golf season. They're looking for hope. It's really,
that's a good way of looking at it. They're looking for hope.
Yeah.
Hope is on the horizon. There's no question about that. And the Golf Expo kind of brings that at the beginning of every year. It's not for everybody, but it's based on what I saw Friday and what people told me about Saturday. It certainly is for enough people.
And we had during the teaching seminar that was helping Derek with or whatever, we had full seats that were there, and it was good. There's definitely people asking questions, and certainly asking about places that they could go and work on their games and stuff like that. So was happily giving advice as far as depending where they lived and so forth, and guiding them towards instructors and so forth. So the game is at a healthy point at this point as far as the number of people playing. I think it's a case of people sorting things out, like, still like budgets, demand, where are they going to get access to play golf courses this year? Some did mention having a harder time to buy memberships and being on membership wait lists and stuff like that. So that was sort of, maybe changing their plans a little bit. But overall, it was just a lot of people, I think I heard a lot of people just saying, hey, I'm excited to play, but also having more friends and more family members that are now playing the game as well. So more people to play with, which was good to hear. I didn't hear a lot of travel stuff. I heard some. Most of the stuff that I heard, we saw our good friend Sam McPhail and the gang from PEI was there, and they had oysters and stuff like that. Definitely heard a lot of discussion, and I'm not going to get into the politics and stuff of it, but a lot of discussion from people about saying, hey, you know what, I want to take a Canadian golf vacation this year. Whereas in the past, maybe we heard some more people looking for, I'm going to get out early and I'm going to go down to New York State or Pennsylvania or whatever.
Yeah.
There's still some of that, but there's definitely, Algonquin Resort was there from New Brunswick. Definitely had some other people asking about some different places they could go in Canada this year.
Well, I guess that's the nature of the beast right now. That's certainly something that we might get into at some point or another here, and the effects of all the Trump dumbness that's going on, and how that's going to affect the golf industry, how that's going to affect golf courses. I mean, at some point or another, it is bound to have some kind of an effect if things aren't rectified soon. But I think we have to wait and see how that sort of plays out before we can really dig into anything other than speculation at this point.
I agree. But I will say, I think that's a positive trend when people are looking to, spend money and support it in their backyard. Be it resorts, products, or otherwise. And, a quick tip to, potential supporters and marketing partners as well. Just remember that maybe those places that you try to run and spend all your social media money on, remember, they're not necessarily Canadian. So you may want to support some of the people that are in your own backyard, taking care of your own stories and covering your own stuff. So
very well put. Very well put.
Yeah.
Okay. Some massive news coming out of Tiger Woods camp recently. If it's not one thing, it's another thing with this poor guy. I mean, it's like everybody wants the good for Tiger. Everybody wants to see him return. You know, everybody was excited about possibly seeing him at the Players. Everybody was excited about the possibility of him returning for the Masters coming up, and it appears as though the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. He has ruptured his left Achilles during a training at home, practicing at home, trying to get ramped up to come back. And he's ruptured his Achilles. And if anybody's ever had a ruptured Achilles, I have not. It does not sound very fun. It sounds very painful, and obviously he had surgery right away.
And this is a guy that, he's had surgery and obviously it was successful, but this is a guy that has a number of injuries, and a lot of people are pointing to the fact that he had so much damage and to his right leg that it's quite possible that he's obviously put a lot of extra strain and force on the left leg from a support perspective. But here's the thing: if he's not going to be back, obviously, if we look back, of last year, kind of when we saw him and what he played, how he played, and whatever, and it wasn't exactly over stellar. I did see a note from fellow media member going, looking forward to having him back for 2026 for the Masters or whatever. And there was some tone of expectations in that. My response immediately was, we need to remember that next year for the Masters, this guy will be 50. And granted, superhuman, obviously done a lot of wild things. He's not that superhuman if obviously he's been hurt that much.
No.
But I think, and we've mentioned it before on the show, having reasonable expectations, not the hysterical expectations. He's not 30. This is not Tiger of 30. This is not Tiger of 35. It's barely 40. I'm not saying the guy's done, but to try to expect much of him at age 50 when he's going to come back, his birthday's in December. Even if he makes a comeback, I mean, what more do we want from this guy? He's already had it.
I don't know I guess when it comes to Tiger, I mean, obviously everybody wants to see him play. Everybody wants to see him get one more win. And frankly, what I would rather see is the PGA Tour reevaluate Sam Snead's victories and maybe modify what happened there. And then he wouldn't have to do this because his PGA Tour victories would be far more legit. That said, you're right. He's got nothing left to prove. The chances of him coming back and winning again is so slim. I mean, I know he's Tiger Woods, but these guys now, these guys are grinding day in and day out.
Yeah.
They're working out, they're younger. They just, for him to come back and win a tournament at this point, maybe the Zozo or something like that, where it's only 30 players in the field or something like he did once before, where you got less guys to beat. But when you got to tip it up with 150 guys and every single one of them can win, I mean, let alone a major. I mean, come on, like that's at some point we got to be real about
and I think the realness
expectations of him.
And I think our expectations, or a lot of people's expectations, are rooting in selfishness of what we want. Well, let's let Tiger have whatever we want. And whether, and I agree, on the Sam Snead reevaluation, but I don't even think it's necessary, because in the end, doesn't matter if he's the all-time leading winner or not. Not really.
Never going to touch Jack's major record at this point, so that we put that aside. Yeah, he's already number of wins. I mean, nobody's going to come.
Doesn't diminish his career. It doesn't diminish his career one way or the other. So again, at this point, pining after him coming back and having some expectation or whatever. I mean, yeah, it's just,
Get
I
yourself
think,
right, come back and win a couple
yeah.
PNCs. Like,
Yeah, well, we're gonna, yeah, and we'll talk about it on the back nine or whatever. But I mean, talking about and seeing some of the younger players coming up, especially in like opposite field events, and seeing the level of talent, the level of fitness, the level of work, and I mean, God, I don't know about you, but at the age of 50 plus, the thought of trying to go back there and compete with people that are 25, I
yeah,
know the golf ball doesn't know how old you are, but
no,
it's a
but your
tall
body does.
your body does. Yeah, you're right. It's a tall task, and yeah, that for sure.
Oh,
So
I look at. I still love to play, and I'm still pretty
sure,
good at it when I'm healthy. But for whatever reason in my life, my body is
saying no.
not happy with me, and is saying, maybe you need to think about not. I'm not going to say not playing, but I mean it's just my body's not letting me do the things that I want to do.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and Tiger's this is an elite athlete. His
Yeah, and
body's not going to let him train, and
right.
and I can't see Tiger Woods being one of those guys that is content to
No.
just get up in the morning, you know, do a little cardio to stay skinny and
Yeah.
go hit a few balls once a week here and there and tip it up
Yeah.
in a PGA Tour event. Like it's I
Yeah.
mean, back in the day, guys like Bruce Litsky would do
Mm.
that. Probably didn't lift a weight in his entire life. The heaviest thing he lifted when he wasn't playing in a PGA Tour event was a fishing rod,
Yeah.
or a
Or a
tackle
beer.
box.
Or a beer.
So, it's
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So and there were lots of guys like Bruce Litsky back then that just going to
Yeah.
the gym, hitting the
Well,
trailer, all that stuff, that wasn't a
yeah.
thing.
No, and I think again, it's back to the selfishness of the fan related to things, and I'll tie this into a comment I saw this week, yesterday, Rory McIlroy saying that they asked him about the Champions Tour, and he basically said he has no interest in playing golf after 50. He basically just said he's like, I've done something really wrong if I'm still having to go out and compete at the
Hmm.
age of 50. He's a guy that's 35. You've got to remember, it's about what they want. It's not about what we want,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
100%, hundred
And
percent.
people were criticizing for that. Even I saw a comment from Ernie Els going, "Oh yeah, you'll like to compete and play with your friend." Okay, well maybe he doesn't want that. Maybe Ernie, you want that. Maybe some other people want that, but it's up to the player to decide what they want. And so that'll come down for Tiger too. If he wants to keep playing and wants to keep grinding for whatever reason, that's his choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the expectations that we're going to see a high level of performance out of that, I think, is misguided.
There you go. All right.
There we go.
Let's see. Let's talk about the Golf Ontario Hall of Fame
Yeah,
announcements.
just came out.
This has just come out now. They're announcing that the inductees for the 2025 class, and they include Elena Sharp, which
Mm-hmm.
is really no surprise.
In the player category.
Yeah, Archie Berube.
Yeah, so that's a good friend of our guys from the north. Yeah, Archie was a real innovator as far as the Northern Golf Association and kind of keeping that association together, and has been a long time supporter up there. So he's recognized that from a builder standpoint.
Grant Fraser, a very good
Yeah,
friend of ours for a very long time, founder of the Golf Management Institute of Canada, really pioneered the education component for the PGA of Canada,
yeah,
and for players that people that for also for people who don't want to become PGA of Canada professionals, but just
mm-hmm.
want to get into the industry, whether it's as shop managers or food and beverage managers,
Sure,
whatever the
exactly.
case may be. Grant was the one that basically spearheaded this whole thing
Yep,
ages ago,
yep.
and still
Starting back
going
with a
strong.
Humber program,
Yeah.
Niagara program. The other side too, Grant's been heavily involved in a lot of committees, a lot of work with the Golf Journalists Association, tons of different, work with Golf Ontario, Golf Canada. It's just kind of endless. So to
Yeah.
see him recognized is great to see.
And Charles Blair McDonald
Yeah,
is another one that will be inducted into the
yeah,
Golf Hall of Fame
So most people will know him as the father of golf architecture in America, but he was born in Niagara Falls in Canada, won the first U.S. amateur, helped bring the R&A rules to North America. That would include Canada as well, was responsible for helping start one of the first international golf tournaments between Canada and America. Also innovated one of the first ladies golf tournaments, which was actually hosted down in Niagara regions as well. There's some people are going, well, he was just born in Niagara, but he grew up in Chicago or whatever. Well, the whole point when you look at the nomination forms for all this stuff is that it's the influence not only at a provincial level, a national level, but an international level as well. So, as a result of it, and he was just nominated or inducted into the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame, and he's already a member of the World Golf Hall of Fame. So it seems sort of only right that he's in the Ontario Golf Hall of Fame.
I think so.
Yeah. Exactly.
And Doug Ball will be honored with the prestigious Lauren Rubenstein Media Award for his contributions to golf photojournalism. So somebody in our world.
Yes, and Doug was he was one of the guys shucking oysters at the Golf PEI booth, the Ottawa-Gatineau Golf Expo. A lot of people will know Doug's photography if you go and look, whether it's from a political side of it. He did tons of stuff over the years. He was based in Ottawa for many years, worked for CP. He's shot tons of stuff with NHL, CFL, you name it, and a great guy as well, and a huge ambassador for golf. And he was actually the first director of golf for Devil's Pulpit. So it was his friends, Chris Haney and Scott Abbott, who worked with him at the Canadian Press, who actually founded Devil's Pulpit after they had found success with Trivial Pursuit board game. And Doug was not an early investor, but they were his great friends, and he ended up being the ambassador for Devil's Pulpit, and just an outstanding guy. And certainly, for this award, definitely somebody that needed to be recognized. And that's the first photojournalist that's received this award. So
beautiful. Now, all of that is going to be taking place. The induction ceremonies will be up at the Wooden Sticks Golf Course in Uxbridge, Ontario, May the 7th. I'm sure that we'll have a follow-up to that following May 7th.
I will be in attendance. So.
Okay, so that's great. The Players' Championship. This is what I guess we would consider, has always been sort of considered the fifth major.
Yeah, exactly.
It is by far a major strength field.
Always.
There's no question. But I guess, there's only four majors, so it's not one, but it certainly kicks out. It's nice to see it in its kickoff the season position.
Yeah, and it's the biggest tournament run and owned by the PGA Tour outside of team events, obviously. So the majors, if you look at it, are run by different institutions. This, as it's supposed to be, is a Players' Championship. It's their championship. Exactly. It's on their facility and on their headquarters.
So there's a bunch of Canadians in the field: Silverman, Connors, Taylor, Hughes, Svensson, Pendrith, Hadwin. The mainstays, the norms that you expect to hear when we talk about the PGA Tour and the Canadians on the tour.
Which is impressive when you think about it. I mean, having seven of them in that field is wild.
Oh, no question.
Right?
No question. Connors just had a third place finish last week at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. I'm sure he will say a disappointing third place finish because his final round, he didn't make a birdie until 16.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think he didn't make a birdie on the final day until 16, and he probably only needed one or two other birdies on his card to get himself into a playoff or to win it outright. So
it was that Russell Henley chip in that sort of destroyed the chances for him and Morikawa, unfortunately there. And that golf course is playing tough, which bodes well for this week, because this golf course is going to play tough. Although as we speak, the lead has gotten to 4 under already, but
these guys are just too good. Like these guys are so good that even the toughest golf courses, like Sawgrass, can be brought to its knees with the talent that he's playing. And we saw last week with the Arnold Palmer, we saw a lot of players significantly humbled by just how difficult Bay Hill can play. Bay Hill can play very tough,
Oh
especially
yeah.
if there's a little bit of wind.
Yeah. Get those
It's
greens
a
hard,
ton of
fast.
water on that golf
Yep.
course.
Yep.
And Sawgrass is another golf course where there's a lot of water. There's a lot of trouble to get into. And
Yeah.
if the wind gets up a little bit, it gets hidden because of how the golf course is routed in through all those trees. So the ball
Yeah.
gets up above the trees at all, and the winds are swirling.
And I think you only have to look at the early start by like Jordan Spieth, who was having quite the day already. I mean, his front nine, he shot 2 under in the front nine with 2 eagles, a double,
Yeah,
two bogeys, 2 birdies. So I mean, that's the
crazy.
kind of the golf course that it is. And I think we will see some kind of we will see some low rounds when the weather lays down, as you said. But this is also important as well, not to judge kind of where things are going to go after
No.
day one, because once players flip and maybe get the opposite side as for tomorrow, have a different start, maybe get a slightly different weather, it's going to change that well. But it's one of those events, definitely. For myself, I know I'll have my eyes on it a fair bit more than most. I haven't watched a lot of PGA Tour golf this year. I did catch a little bit of Bay Hill on the Sunday, but this is one I watch, and I think I think we're both that way. It's always those ones where you played the golf course before and you sort of
Yeah,
have a different feel for it.
yeah, it makes a
That
difference with this one, especially
Yeah.
having played it. I was remarking to that when I was talking to my wife yesterday. Was watching the Creator Classic,
Mm.
a part of it. I, I, I'm still trying to figure it out. The 8 holes, I guess they play the back nine, but they
I wanted to
finish on
finish on 17.
17 instead of.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
I,
it's
I
kind of
haven't
an
I haven't
it's like
caught
an
it
eight
yet.
hole tournament, and
Yeah.
I guess it's sponsored by YouTube. It's all to kind of draw attention to a different audience, but
Mm-hmm.
some of it was okay.
Yep.
You see some decent golf at the top.
Yeah. You're
But
not. There's no expectation.
watching Kyle Berkshire blow balls into the bush for 8
Yeah, I
holes
didn't.
is just like, what are
I
you
have to go.
doing, dude?
I have to go back. I have to go back and see this. I mean, it's there for entertainment. It's not there from a competitive golf standpoint. And, even I saw a couple of, I saw someone comment, after I think Grant Horvat won it or whatever. And when somebody said, "Oh, this is going to be your year," and then someone commented, "His year for what?" Like
For
for
playing another
continue
round of golf with Phil Mickelson and Bryson
for
DeChambeau, like, I
Yes,
mean,
exactly. For content and whatever, that's perfectly fine. But again, these, even he will admit, he's not the level that these tour players are. So let's not be mistaken here.
no.
Short of Wesley Bryan, who's obviously won on the PGA Tour, the rest of the players, they're not going to be in the
Yeah, but
field
even
of the
Wesley
Players
Bryan,
Championship.
even Wesley
Yeah, he played
Bryan shot
terrible.
like 6 over or 7
Yeah,
over for 8 holes. I mean,
yeah.
yes, he
So
won on the PGA Tour, but
yeah, but
you
be realistic. This is about entertainment more
yeah,
than
no
anything.
question,
So
no question. But anyways, it was just nice to see. I was nice to see the golf course, to see some
familiar holes.
some familiar holes. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
watching this week. I haven't watched any yet today.
No, neither have
I haven't
I.
really followed anything yet today, so I will get into it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But can Scheffler get the three-peat?
That's going to be big.
That's huge. I mean, that's tough. I mean, repeating is enough at the players, but to win 3 in a row for him, that it's interesting with Scheffler. I know we only got a couple minutes left here before I take a break,
Okay.
but the interesting thing with Scheffler is, how do you rebound? I mean, he in his press conference, I know somebody asked him about expectations and things like that, and he was he was very very snappy with his answer. I thought at first, he's kind of like, you don't have to be so rude to the guy, but it wasn't the rudeness that, when you kind of listened a little bit more, was like, what expectations are you supposed to put on yourself after you have a year that he had last year? What are the expectations you're supposed to have, that you can do that again? I mean,
Pretty rare.
even the smartest golfer, PGA Tour golfer, realizes that the chances of repeating that kind of a year again are so slim
Yeah.
that just to get a couple of wins on the PGA Tour, finish high up in the FedEx Cup standings, and maybe win a major, that might be the highest of expectations that you could achieve.
Yeah, and doing that in a year, I mean, that's a career for most players. That's a career
nowadays. So, I mean, like I said before, the guy that's 150th, in world rankings, or the guy that's the highest world rankings is tipping it up with the best players in the world. What separates the best players in the world from the guy that just got his card is not a massive gap. I mean, this isn't like, Connor McDavid in a fourth liner. I mean, we're talking about PGA. There's only a certain number of them, and they're all good. And what separates them a lot of time is just consistency. It's putting. It's mistakes. It's like Scottie Scheffler could miss cuts just as easy as anybody else. He doesn't miss them, but
he did.
Yeah, but he doesn't miss them as often. So he did at one point. Yes,
right. What I'm saying is that before he got into the role that he is right now, he was. So it's not like you just showed up on tour and you're automatically that. And he's well aware that that it's a fleeting game, and he could very well go the other way. And it could not be because of his own doing.
Yeah,
you got to remember that you still, as you mentioned, you've still got other players coming up. Players are getting better and better and better all the time. So, and you can't play defense. So the thing is, all you can do is you can do what you do. And, if that's not good enough, then so be it.
Well, and you got to think too, when you're at the level that Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth and Tony Finau and Scottie Scheffler and Xander Schauffele and these guys are at, when you're at that level, you can, to stay at that level, to stay making cut after cut after cut, that comes from knowing your game, confidence, the work you put in. But when you've got that success already in place, the money's already made. The pressure, the pressure for someone like Tiger Woods to tee it up in a PGA Tour event and worry about whether he wins or not. He doesn't. I mean, he wants to win. If he finishes in the top 10, great. He's not concerned about the $500,000 he might win. No. He's already got a lot of that. More of that's not changing his life.
No,
he wants to win, and that's what these guys. When you're at the top of it, it's about winning. It's not about top tens. It's about winning and getting points. If you don't win, you already got lots of money. You're not worried about what hotel you're staying at or paying your mortgage. So the guys at the bottom, they're worried about making cuts and paying the mortgage. Anyway, we got to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to maybe finish some of this conversation. We're going to talk about Scott's trip to Puerto Rico. So stay with us. You're listening and watching the Flagstick podcast with Jeff Bonner and Scott McLeod.
Hey, loser buys the first round. You're on.
On Prince Edward Island, we believe in playing your game your way. From the first tee box to the 19th hole and beyond. With over 400 fairways waiting for you, there's always another reason to golf Prince Edward Island.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody, to the Flagstick podcast. I'm Jeff Bonner, Scott McLeod, alongside. I think we'll get into the back nine.
Yeah,
I'm still awake, so that's a good thing. Let's get into the back nine. Me too. We got some stuff to talk about. Back nine is presented by Celtic Golf Center, now with two awesome locations, one in Kempville, one in the brand new location in Kingston, both featuring multiple state-of-the-art TrackMan sims. Your golf season never has to end. Enjoy a round of golf with friends, join one of the many leagues, get fit for some new equipment, or take a lesson. Celtic Golf Centers have got you covered, because it really is all about the golf. Visit CelticGolfCenter.com to learn more, to book tee times, or to sign up for a league. Incidentally, provided, depending on how my shoulders and whatnot feel, I'm supposed to play tomorrow at 11 o'clock at Celtic Golf Center with Brandon as sort of the end of his March break.
Yeah.
So I'll probably go regardless and just kind of bunt it around if I have to, just for the heck of it. But
of course you're going to play.
I don't know.
Now.
How many are there?
400.
Can we play Sawgrass?
No.
Oh, no, it's Sodgrass.
No, it's not on there.
Damn.
He's got everything
Oh, that's
converted
a
over.
Unicor. Unicor, it was
Correct.
sod grass.
Yes, and he's got everything converted over to TrackMancer now. He converted the other two over to IOs. So
All right. Well,
there you
we'll have
go.
to come up with something.
There's lots of good ones. Maybe you can
Yeah.
play in Puerto Rico. You can play the Bahia Beach Club.
Maybe.
Mm.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. Which is interestingly enough where you were last
I
week.
played that golf course last
No.
week. So yeah.
Heaven forbid you suffer through the
Ugh.
coldness that is the northern frozen tundra of Ottawa and the surrounding area. But yes, Scott had a chance to disappear for
a few days.
A few days down to Puerto Rico
Mm-hmm.
As a guest of Discover Puerto Rico to explore that island and what it offers to some of the traveling golfers who wish to partake. But that aside, one of the highlights of that trip down there was you got to play in the Pro-Am for the Puerto Rico's PGA Tour's Puerto Rico Open, which is the opposite field event to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So, why don't you kind of just? I'm going to sit back a little bit. I'll interject if I feel the need to, but why don't you kind of just tell us about the trip?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, and we'll have a full story on flagstick.com, and if people followed our social media channels, that they would have seen some content and stuff on that already. So a little less about the travel stuff. Yes, it was warm, 30 Celsius each day. Definitely cranking on the sunscreen and stuff like that. But the Pro-Am was really the interesting part for me, more than anything. It's pretty low key.
The Pro or the Am?
I'm the Am. So, but it's low key. I will tell you this, versus what was probably going on at Bay Hill. Again, this is an opposite field event. So, there's some names that you would definitely know in there, whether it's the Billy Haas's of the world, or, the Danny Willits, the Masters champion, and Camilo Villegas and players like that. But there's a lot of players that you would not know, Corn Ferry Tour players, up and coming tour players that are further down in the rankings. We had a few Canadians that were there. I didn't see David Hearn, and I did run into Max Sear. I saw his golf bag at one point. That's about it. And because it's, an island nation, there was not a lot of spectators or anything there, but they did put on a nice show. Because we were doing a bunch of other things as far as traveling around, getting a look at some different golf courses, hotels, restaurants and stuff like that. We didn't participate in the Pro-Am party on the Tuesday night. So we were just, we figured out, I figured out who we were possibly playing with by knowing what our tee time was, but I wasn't sure if we were going off 10 or 1. And so I knew what the possibilities were going to be going into the day, but we didn't know for sure until we showed up and got to our cart and, basically found out we were playing with Pearson Coody and Norman Zhang, who, probably will not be on a lot of people's radar, but I'm pretty familiar with Coody. His grandfather, Charles Coody, obviously won the Masters back in the day. And then him and his twin brothers were great players at the University of Texas. And then Norman played at Oregon and was actually born in Guam, but grew up in California. So you get to play 9 holes with each guy. I like the fact that they make this a gross scramble now, as opposed to a net scramble. So
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. So you're going to see, when you go to play, you've got to earn it. And you do get the opportunity to make use of, the pros. You can only make use of their drives on the par 3s, which didn't really matter because we're playing at 6,500 yards. They're playing 7,500 yards, and I'm long enough that I'm far past where their drives are going to be. And frankly, the couple birdies that we used from them, we were already inside 3-4 feet. So really it was our team that, ended up 13 under. I think we ended up finishing 5th, but it was still fun because you're going out there and, you still get especially after the winter, you're out on grass. We played the day before, so had one game on grass since December. And all of a sudden, boom, you're on a PGA Tour course with the conditions and stuff like that, speeds of greens, firmness of fairways, tightness of fairways, and things like that. And you're being introduced, and I'm not saying I'm going to get nervous, but you certainly pay attention a little bit more on that first tee shot. Was fortunate to hit a good one down the middle, so it was good, and we were kind of off and running after that. But super entertaining. If you looked at the other people that were participating, as far as the amateurs and the teams, the value that they were getting out of participating, obviously got to spend time with their two players, and our guys were great, just chatting about everyday life and things like that. If you needed their caddy to have a look at a putt or something like that, they would have been more than happy to do that. They have like food and beverage stations every 3 holes. It's kind of what you would expect.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was very interesting to kind of see that. I've been in LPGA, PGA Tour Canada, Pro-Ams and stuff before, so it was kind of neat to do the comparison. Very, very the same, a lot of the same structure and stuff like that. What really stood out for me for this tournament, though, was just the festivities. Like, Puerto Rico is a very vibrant country, so there was just lots of Latin music going on. Like, even the little spectator village they had, there was just like, even the staff were wearing some more flowered type stuff. There's there's a zip line in the little spectator village. And the players were much more relaxed too, being it was the Wednesday. They could wear shorts and stuff like that, but you could tell that a lot of them, when we went over to the one hotel in the morning for breakfast, a lot of the players were there, a lot of spouses. This is definitely a trip where they, not every player has their spouse or girlfriend or whatever with them on tournaments. This was definitely one where there was definitely a lot of families there. There was definitely, parents, cousins, whatever, and they just kind of turn it into a little vacation, sort of like you'd see in like Hawaii and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And again, it's not an event that's a huge purse. I mean, it's still 4 million and 720,000 to the first prize, compared to like 4.5 million this week. But it's a life-changing tournament for a lot of these players. Carl Phillips ended up getting the win, and that's his third start as a PGA Tour member, fourth start on the PGA Tour, and now he's a tour winner. But I think when we go back to our conversation talking about Tiger and the level of play, I mean, Pearson and I mean, Norman hits it huge. I mean, he was reaching 650-yard par fives. Pearson, you could have his back. I remarked to another player, looked like an aircraft carrier. Like, he's a small guy, but he's just like, he's fit. He's super fit and strong, and it's like robots out there. There's tons and tons and tons of them, and all these guys are capable of shooting 22, 25 under. I mean, a guy that led after the first day shot 10 under. I had to Google him. I had to find out who he was.
But that's the point, right?
Right. Totally.
That's exactly the point. You're not going to see these guys yet. But when you do, you're going to go, I don't know anything about this person, but they're actually pretty good. Very good.
And Norman, we talked a little bit about the RBC Canadian Open, and hopefully he's in the field. He's coming off a medical exemption, so he doesn't know what his starts are like and things like this. And these are the opportunities for these guys to come up and to get wins. And while everybody always focuses on the celebrities, the players they know, the household names, these guys can play, and don't doubt it. So if you have an opportunity to play in a Pro-Am, or even just to go see these players, definitely worth going to see. And they're also appreciative too. I mean, they recognize they're not at a state in life where everything gets handed to them. They're grinding hard. A lot of them are using local caddies, and they recognize it's a little bit more expensive to go and attend this event, but they're taking the risk to do that. But yeah, overall, a very interesting experience for a Pro-Am, and very enjoyable. So
great. Now, of course, there's going to be a follow-up travel story on flagstick.com at some point in the near future about the destination more so than the Pro-Am event. But it's hard to talk a lot about a destination just verbally.
You need the visual support. And we did play 3 different golf courses there, stayed at 2 different resorts. I will tell you this. Overall, very surprised. I went into this without a lot of knowledge. You know me, I usually like to do my homework and do a lot of research. And after Dan Shepard, who used to work for Buffalo and has Dan Shepard PR, he had reached out about this. I chose specifically not to do a lot of research on it, just to kind of go in blind, which is a little disconcerting sometimes when you're landing at the airport.
So that must have been
that must have been tough. Yeah, and it was, but I think it was, as a result of it, though, I think it was a little bit more enlightening because, when I discovered stuff, it wasn't like people said, oh, and this, and I'm like, yeah, I already read about that. No, it was like you're hearing it for the first time. So I would say as a destination in that way, definitely a lot of surprises within that. And I think that'll be reflected in the story. And, really, cool. I went from ignorance to bliss. How's that?
Beautiful. I like it. Okay. I want to, since we got that sort of discussion done,
sure.
Let's kind of circle back a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the Arnold Palmer Invitational.
Sure.
I want to go back to that. There was some, recently there was some stuff in the news that regarding Collin Morikawa. Okay. And then it kind of sparked some discussion about the obligation of PGA Tour players,
the media thing,
with respect to media availability immediately following events. And
sure,
obviously, when a player is in a PGA Tour event and they're grinding it, and they're right in contention, and then they don't win, and it. And in Colin's case, he had a little bit of a hiccup on the scorecard, but he also fell victim to a chip in, an eagle chip in that kind of just basically turned the tables on the whole thing. That was looking like he was probably going to win, at the very least, get into a playoff, or be part of a playoff, only to have that kind of go away. And it's like this rise and fall of emotions that happen in professional sport. So, and McIlroy did it at the U.S. Open too.
Yep.
Where, you have this massive letdown and disappointment. He missed a couple of putts, particularly a very important putt, to lose the U.S. Open, that he should have got into a playoff or won. So that begs the question, what is the obligation? What should the obligation be? I mean, I know I have my opinion. I will always feel this way, emotions aside. But what is the obligation of these players to make themselves available for the media, which essentially is making themselves available for the public, following an event where they have a disappointing finish or something disappointing happen that's very hard to talk about?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I think sometimes we have to separate the person from the athlete, and that we have to recognize that's not always easy to do, even for the player themselves. So, personally, they can be very disappointed and obviously have that emotion where they feel like they have to go and have to leave. Professionally, you would hope that they would feel that, they would maybe explain a little bit of things, talk about, maybe to the media, and as a result, the people, what they want. But on the other side of it, when I see the people clamoring about obligation, I see that coming more from our media colleagues more than anything, which is, what I saw in particular on the, Golf Channel, a couple of people doing that. If you cannot, while it's nice to be able to have the input from the player, to be able to explain, kind of what they were feeling, what they're having, and add that to the context of your story. If you can't not write a story without that, you're in trouble. You should be able to find a thing. And yes, it's easier. The player is taking a risk that the blanks are going to get filled in rather than, filling it in themselves. So there is definitely a risk of that vacuum. But again, that's their decision to create that vacuum. Would I like to hear from them? Yes. should it be written in contracts that, they have to make an appearance and so forth? I don't know. That's a tough ground. I would definitely like to hear from them. I would definitely think the fans would like to hear from them. I think the people that, because they're invested in it, I think, all those things lead to them playing for the money that they are. So you would hope that, that is helpful that way. But I'm also understanding that at some times, right in the moment, that's pretty difficult. So it's almost like this. It's almost like they need a cooling off period, right? So it's almost like, okay, you know what? Come talk to me in an hour afterwards. And Morikawa said it himself. He might have felt different, an hour later, but right at that moment, he just didn't feel like, he felt like, because you got to remember, sometimes they're also doing it to protect themselves because they're afraid of what they might say right after they get off the golf course, which again, that's going to get, in this time of an era, that can get very misconstrued. So it's a murky.
So see, I don't necessarily see it as murky waters as maybe some others see it as. I think that the way for you as a PGA Tour professional or as a professional athlete at this level, the way for you has been paved by those that came before you, those that buy the tickets to watch you, those that tune in on TV, and to a great extent, to the media who cover you week in and week out, when it's good and when it's bad, who pump you up and help you earn those dollars that you make, particularly your sponsorship dollars and things like that, where you have an opportunity to showcase your brand in front of millions and millions of people. You can't pick and choose when you the good times and the bad. Phil Mickelson stood in front of a camera after making a stupid decision at I believe it was a U.S. Open.
2006.
Yeah. And Jean Van de Velde stood in front of a camera immediately after his collapse at the Open Championship. Guys before Collin Morikawa didn't do what Phil Mickelson did. He didn't do what Jean Van de Velde did. He essentially might have made some mistakes in that final round, but he got beat by another player. So I feel though these players should have an obligation to get in front of the camera, to get in front of a microphone and talk to the media following a loss, as difficult as it is, as much as they should have that obligation to stand in front of the camera after winning $4.5 million. I just feel like I get it. I totally get it. You're bummed out. You just lost. You're afraid you might say the wrong thing, but that's part of the gig. That's part of your ability to go out week in and week out and play for $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $10 million a week. You just don't get to just pick and choose. Oh, well, I'm not feeling like talking this week because I didn't have a good week. Well, you know what? If you'd have won, you'd be in front of the camera. If you'd have finished 15th, you'd probably be in front of the camera, but you finished second, you finished third, you finished fifth, you made the double bogey on the 18th to lose the tournament. Well, that's part of the emotion of professional sport. That's why they interview the people that lose the Stanley Cup Game 7 as much as they interview the ones that win. It just I just feel like, and I'm look at anybody can disagree with what I'm saying. You can disagree. Anybody can disagree. Yeah, there is no right and wrong. There is no right or wrong answer. What I'm saying is not what it should be. Sure. What I'm saying is what I feel it should be. And then there's obviously the argument that you just made that it could go, it's kind of murky waters. It could go maybe yes, maybe no. I am on the other side of it where I think the waters are not as murky as I don't feel the waters are as murky. I think the water's dirty, but the water's not as murky. I think that there's some arguments to be had for why it'd be difficult to stand in front of a camera in that situation, but I feel stronger about the argument that they should have an obligation to stand in front of the camera in that situation, because that's part of the allure and the emotion of professional sports when you're playing it at the highest levels possible. That's part of it, is dealing with that and showing that emotion to the fans, to the media, because they're the reason you're there. It's not because of all the work you put in. It's you're doing what you're doing because of all the work you put in, but you're playing for the money. You're getting all this TV time. You're getting all these endorsements because of what these people are bringing to the table too. It's not just about the playing. If there was no TV cameras and no television coverage and no media coverage, you wouldn't be playing for $5 million.
Yeah,
You'd
I
be
think
playing for $1.50.
Yeah, I think part of it though too is we are in a slightly different era. So I mean, as far as managing images is very important these days. And in the past, that was done by, if we go back to the Arnold Palmer era, and I had this discussion with someone the other day because we were talking about that. You got to remember that in that era, a lot of the writers were, we'll call it, complicit with the stars. Yeah. They did not write a negative word. They did not write. There was no criticism for those.
No, there's a heck of a lot more of the others now than there was back then.
Correct. So I think what happens nowadays is that there is so much exposure and there's so much stuff going on and there's so much willingness to pick away at certain things. Like, we're having a discussion talking about it right now. I think that, that comes down to image management. In a lot of cases sometimes. So I think they tend to be a little bit more careful. And I'm not going to say modern players don't, turn down interviews, because they do, certainly, whether it's Tiger or Phil or whatever. Lots of them do for particular reasons. Lots of them take on interviews because they're doing it because they're manipulating their image.
Yeah, they're trying to project something.
Yeah, right. So it's exactly it too. So I think it's a really complicated topic. What I'm saying is that I would like to hear from them to fill in the narrative, but I don't necessarily feel that when they decide not to. I think they're taking a risk. I think they're taking a risk when they don't do it. So just like this now,
I think it's an undue risk, though. That's the thing. Like I think it's when you don't take the interview, when you don't tell your side of the story, I think you're like you said, you're leaving it wide open for the media naysayers, the guys that in particular, the media guys that you and I don't like.
Right.
To fill in the narrative. Say what they want to say to get clicks, to get views. And without the context from the player to insert truth here, I guess is the spots. Like insert truth here. You're leaving that open to insert whatever the heck you feel like here. Right. And there's nothing you can do about it because you didn't talk to me after your round. So I'm going to say what I feel. And then that's how you get these social media things where it's the little 30-second clip that, or the post that someone says something and then everybody piles on because that's the, I mean, we're seeing that, outside of golf, we see that with all this stuff going back and forth with Canada and the US.
Sure, yeah.
It's like, your tariffs this and your tariffs this, and you've been tariffing us, and nobody really has any clue what they're talking about. Sure. They're just piling on to whatever somebody's putting out there. And that's what you want to avoid in professional sport, not just golf. But by not talking to the media after you lost, you look like you're a sore loser. You look like you're just, I'm not speaking to you because I should have won, and that was a bump. He doesn't want to say something stupid like, "Oh, it's a lucky chip in," because then that's going to negatively impact him in the locker room. So he's trying to guard against all these things that he doesn't want to say, but then all of those things that he doesn't want to say are going to turn into memes and interpretations.
There's no win. You can't win.
So you're better, to me, that's what I say. You're better off just getting in front of the camera and talking and taking a deep breath, collecting yourself, and being a professional, than letting the media decide how this is going to play out.
And if it gets misinterpreted, well, then you just go back to what you say. So, which is, and that's the last quick example here is like, Rory talking about YouTube stuff and whatever. And I saw a whole bunch of memes and people, like chewing on him. Like I watched the press conference. I read the transcript. He didn't piss on YouTube or content creators. He just said it wasn't for him. So you're not wrong with that. It's just when all of a sudden, and if somebody's going to misinterpret it, fine. You can't do anything. It's the same as this. Nope. We do this podcast. If someone wants to have an opinion about it, they're perfectly fine to do that. But you're right. As long as you can provide the facts, at least the facts are out there, and then you don't leave a gap. So good stuff. Good. That's a good mention though. I'm glad you brought that up actually.
And I think that's a good place to stop.
There you go.
All right. Well, that was a good podcast. We got to. I like these podcasts where we just kind of get to chat. You know what I mean? Like there's always news and stuff out there, but you know what?
Sure.
You want the news, we'll talk about a little bit of
Yeah.
it, but go to flagstick.com. That's where we put it there for. And we want to talk. We want to have these banters, these discussions, these, not arguments, but back and forth, we'll call them, just where we get opinions going different directions. And then we put it out there for everybody else to, hey, what's your opinion? How do you feel
exactly.
about it? That kind of thing.
Exactly.
So great show. Glad we powered through that with all the technical difficulties, the lack of sleep, and the extreme pain that I'm in right now. But that's what they make Advil and Tylenol for.
And there's a 10-way tie for the lead at the Players right now, so it's going to be a good week. So looking forward to that.
I really feel like it's going to be a good weekend. I think the weather's supposed to be cooperating too, so let's hope that it stays that way. Okay, well, thank you to everybody for watching and listening. Thanks to our sponsors, Metcalf Golf Club, Celtic Golf Center, presenting sponsor, of course, this week, Golf PEI. Golf Prince Edward Island's premier golf destination, Canadian golf destination, boasting the most number of golf courses per capita in the country. Over 400 fairways, top-tier accommodations, and exquisite culinary experiences. The easiest golf vacation you'll ever book, so book it. golfpei.ca. Certainly hope that you're enjoying hearing and watching what we're laying down for you. Be sure to follow us across all the social media networks, as always, Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok. Subscribe on Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. And do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Maybe someday we'll be content creators in the Creator Classic or something. But for now, like us, click the notification bell, make sure you never miss a single episode. Get over to flagstick.com for more amazing golf content delivered every single day. And be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, Flagstick Digest. And make sure that you get all this information delivered directly to your inbox 3 times a week. It is 100% free.
Yeah.
100% free. No obligations. Just subscribe and boom, it's in your inbox the very next one. So check that out. As always, we do appreciate you tuning in. But until next week, I am Jeff Botter.
I'm Scott McLeod.
Remember, always go for the stick.